Good morning. Welcome back to First Talk with Hal Row on 1290 WHKY Talk Radio for the Greater Hickory Metro. Time once again for the monthly Monday morning meeting with the mayor. Mayor Rudy Wright is kind enough to take time out of his busy day to come in on a rainy Monday morning and to take your phone calls and questions on the air. 327 WHKY 327-9459. Good morning, Mr. Mayor. Lots happened since we talked last.
Well, a lot of things going on. Yes, sir. Aren't we glad that we saved the rain for Monday?
Yes, yes. Wasn't a bad weekend. Got to talk to you about something kind of serious and kind of difficult, and I do want to let folks know there are certain aspects of this that we can talk about and certain that we can't of this because there are certain items that are yet to be adjudicated that we're not going to talk about on the air. But I did want to let the mayor know I was going to ask this question before we came on the air or talk about this. I never want to be a guy who ambushes or jumps in there without at least letting you know that we want to talk about this, and I want to let our audience know there are certain things that we can and cannot talk about. But more than anything else, I want to talk about procedure. We're talking about an officer being fired by the Hickory Police Department. He was charged with felony assault. And what I want to know about, and I think a lot of people would like to know, is the procedure. How does the city go about handling this when something like this happens and there's an incident within the Hickory Police Department? Does the city council get involved? Does the mayor? Does the city manager? Is it all handled by the police department? Tell me just a little bit about the situation that's going on with this Hickory Police Department officer who has been fired, who has been let go, and has been charged with felony assault. And it's alleged, by the way, he's been charged, not been found guilty. Nothing's been decided in court as of yet. The only thing that's actually factual is he has been released from the Hickory Police Department, and his trial and the alleged defendants or the alleged perpetrator of the crime has still yet to go to trial. So this is alleged. We're in a country where we're innocent until proven guilty, but let us know what's going on from your aspect and from the city procedurally.
First I need to give a little lesson in manager council form of government.
Okay.
Under the manager council form of government, city council has personnel authority over one person, the city manager.
Okay. He works at the pleasure, I believe, is the way it's stated, at the pleasure of the city council.
That's right. No other employee works at the pleasure of city council. So that is set up to keep council members from meddling in personnel affairs, hiring, firing, promotions. And that is the right way to run a local government, and I want to assure all the people that that's the way it works.
Okay. Pure
and simple. I cannot influence anybody's hiring or their promotions or their firing. With police officers, just like workers on the street crews, all levels of Hickory personnel. Normal administrative functions are strictly handled by the department heads and the city manager.
Okay.
They do not consult with the mayor or council. They might inform us, but they don't call me and say, well, what do you think we should do in a case like this?
Gotcha.
And that's the way it needs to be. Now, we have to also exercise, as elected officials, we have to exercise discretion and accept that, understanding that that's the right way to run a business or a local government.
Right.
We do have to recognize the public's right to know what's going on, and certainly, in every case, the public's right to know if something is happening that is symptomatic of broader issues. This situation was handled, as best I can tell, it was handled perfectly. The officer was given the the right to the appeal process, was allowed to appeal the department head decision. I'm not going to get into the merit of that decision or the subsequent decisions in any way, except to say that process is, in my opinion, it's as good a process as you can have, and it was followed. There has been absolutely no attempt to cover up anything, any action of any person from the moment this incident occurred and was videotaped. I think that's public record that there is a videotape. I haven't seen it. I haven't had any curiosity to see it. I trust the process.
Right.
And, of course, the city manager knows that if he in some way lets down the public, not the council or the mayor, but lets down the public, then there will be a day of reckoning on that. And but I have seen or heard nothing in this case to think our people have done anything but handle this situation, this unfortunate situation, in an appropriate manner.
I'm going to ask you when we get back, and then we'll move on to other topics because we've got a lot to talk about this morning. We're going to a break. But I wanted to find out if our City of Hickory police vehicles have dash cams. I don't know. I know that they do in Charlotte because we've seen those before. But I've never seen anything that has come out of. And also, there was an article in the paper this weekend, and it mentioned a Sally port. I don't know what that is. And maybe you can help us with that, or maybe I can get our IT guy to come in during the break.
You're going to need to get someone at a...
You're listening to First Talk with Hal Row, broadcast live Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. until 9 a.m. on 1290 WHKYam, talk radio for the Greater Hickory Metro, and also... Good morning. Welcome back to First Talk with Hal Row on 1290 WHKY Talk Radio for the Greater Hickory Metro. I had no idea what a Sally port was. A Sally port, I thought it was something you plugged in like to a computer.
I did too.
Something that sounded like a cell. When police officers drive into a garage and they have a suspect, there's an area that connects that garage to the booking area, and that's called the Sally port. So there you go. So when you're looking for information from the Sally port, that's what you're looking for. Anyway, we're not able to talk about a lot of things that are going on here, but one of the things I wanted to ask you about is we've got this alleged police officer who's allegedly has felony assault, but again, innocent until proven guilty. He's been charged. We have this defendant who has been charged with a misdemeanor charges relating to what happened in the downtown Hickory area. And the alleged, I guess, defendant in this case, she has an attorney out of Charlotte, and the Hickory police officer has an attorney that's a private attorney, that's his attorney, from I think here in Hickory or from this area. So they've got their own attorneys. But when they're trying to, this is where the city comes in. This is what I want to ask you about with procedure. When they want evidence or they want something that deals with the city of Hickory has to get involved. That's where if they want videotape or if they want information from a Sally port, that's where the city of Hickory becomes involved because the attorneys may try to get information from the city of Hickory. And that's where the city of Hickory and the Hickory attorney has to get involved. The city of Hickory attorney is not representing the officer and, of course, does not represent the defendant. We know that. And from what I understand, that is as far as the city's involvement goes now, is having evidence that the police may have in their possession, and whether that will be released or not is up to the city attorney. Is that correct?
It's up to the city attorney. We really have three attorneys involved. Once again, you end up with a whole lot of legal time involved, sure. And we understand that. We have our in-house counsel. We have our city attorney.
Okay.
And we have our insurance company attorney.
Okay.
Our insurance company is already involved in this because I think it's pretty clear that there will be some allegations that in some way the city has culpability in this.
Okay.
So we've got all of that involved. And incidentally, I have, except for just a few minutes with the city manager, I assume that every council member's had the same conversation with the city manager I have. I don't know whether people understand how we operate, but
and that's what I wanted to ask this morning is how that happens.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to ask.
The city manager calls and says, if you get a phone call,
right,
you need to know these are the facts.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, I have that amount of information, and that's all. In fact, as I said this morning, I was concerned maybe I had spilled the beans that there was video access, but a video of this arrest. But the city manager did tell me that there was a video of the incident.
Right.
There are several issues here. We are just like the plaintiff is entitled to her day in court.
Right.
The defendant is innocent till proven guilty.
Right.
The city doesn't have culpability until it's shown that we do.
I understand.
So everyone is sitting back and saying, well, this is going to have to play out in accordance with the law.
Right.
Now, when I saw this article on Saturday, now I have said all the way, and I believe strongly that the city has conducted, as best I can tell, the city has conducted itself exactly the way any employer would have to do when considering the rights and obligations of being an employer. But when I saw this article, I did make a note, and I want to assure everyone that I'm going to ask today, does that indictment and the fact that I think a reasonable person will say at some point these documents are going to have to be produced, does that mean these documents should be produced now? I'm not pushing for that. The city manager and our 3 attorneys, and well, they all have, and those attorneys have others helping them.
Yeah.
We've got at least 3 attorneys involved that I know by name. But they will decide what the law requires and what is best for us to fulfill our rights and obligations as an employer.
There you go.
Now, the one thing that I always hate, and I don't believe in this, is if you stonewall and stonewall and stonewall and stonewall, and then you release something, then it looks like you were stonewalling when you shouldn't have been.
Right.
So I am going to ask that question today, expecting that the answer will be no. In due course, if a court orders, this video will be released. That's what I expect to be the answer. But if that's not the answer, then I'm going to say release it today. Now, and I only have 1 vote. I can't demand that. My recourse is not to require that be released today. Just to be very blunt and candid with everybody, my recourse is to ask the other council members to join me in voting to fire the city manager. And I like him a lot. I don't think that's going to happen.
Right.
But the point I'm making is that is our only recourse. I hope everyone understands that. I can't call the police chief.
That's what I wanted to
I can't call the police chief and say, I want you to do such and such.
That's what I wanted to make.
If any council member does, I'll be on this show telling you that a council member called the police chief and says, I want you to do such and such.
That's what I wanted people to understand, is if they contact their elected official, because the elected officials, I thought I may have known how the procedure would operate, but I wanted people to know how that, and again, I want to make it very clear this morning, if I haven't done so already, all these are allegations. We have to use the word alleged in all these cases. Just because someone's charged does not mean they're guilty, and whether that's a parking violation or a misdemeanor, or whether that's a charge of a felony assault, whatever those charges are, we work on the assumptions of innocent until proven guilty. These are all simply charges. No one's been found guilty of anything as of yet. I want to make sure that everyone listening understands that, but also wanted them to understand the way that the process works. And that's what I really wanted from you, is kind of a civics lesson, how this works, who's responsible for what, that you can't call your city council person and say, I voted for you, I want to see this video. That's not the way that it works.
That's not the way it works. And at the risk of sounding, sanctimonious, I think might be the word, I want to say to you, Hal, that you didn't mention that this was going to come up until 1 minute before you brought it up.
That's right.
Folks, most elected officials in this country would say, I'm not even going to talk to anybody about that unless there's a lawyer sitting next to me telling me what I can say.
And if you say,
and maybe that's what I should do.
If you say no comment,
but I'll be darned, I am not going to do that as long as I think the public has a right to know what I know.
And if you'd have told me no comment, we respect that. That's exactly.
And I probably should have. Some people would say I should have, but I think I owe it to the people as long as I'm not violating the plaintiff's rights, the defendant's rights, or jeopardizing the city, and I hope I didn't. I think the people have a right to know what I know.
Very good. We'll move on right after this commercial break. You're listening to First Talk with Hal. Good morning. Welcome back to First Talk with Hal Row on 1290 WHKY Talk Radio for the Greater Hooker Metro. Appreciate the mayor coming in, spending time with us, his candor, and his willingness to answer the questions that we give him. Sometimes not always the easiest thing in the world to do, but we appreciate you answering those questions. Thank you very much.
Well, we appreciate you giving the people the time to call in or, there's no excuse for someone to say they didn't even touch on a subject that I won't touch on.
Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier. People will catch me afterwards and say, how come you didn't ask the mayor, blah, blah, blah. Well, why didn't you call? 327 WHKY 327.
And what a listener thinks is important, or well, they may just remember something we don't remember. But they may think something's real important when, for some reason, we don't think it is.
And we want that addressed. That's why we open the phone lines.
Call us.
There may be a store coming to the area of Cloninger Mill Road. And I don't know if this was the area for a park or not, but I read published reports. I believe it was in the Hickory Daily Record. Ralph May had it on the air. I'm not sure where I heard it. But basically, there was a proposal coming up for some land that may be used for a grocery store in a certain area. And then, help me with this, I think that someone said, wait a minute, if you don't approve this, we'll go ahead and give you a check for $900,000 just to keep it in the area and keep it open for a park. Now, I may be totally wrong on that, but it was a council vote versus and the mayor voted the other way. You were like, let's take that check for $900,000 because here's a check for $900,000. Not a pig in a poke. It's something we can see right now. Write the check. Tell me about what happened there, because I want to get it right. You tell me.
Okay, well, at the intersection of Cloninger Mill and 127.
Where the honey pick is.
Across from the honey pick.
Across from the honey pick.
We have a piece of property that is topographically challenged, but it's going to make a beautiful park with it has a waterfall. This is not it's a horizontal waterfall.
It's not Niagara Falls, but it's a nice waterfall.
It's a nice waterfall. It makes a nice tinkling sound. It looks cool. It's pretty. So we've got that, and we plan to make, out of this 75-acre parcel, we plan to make a park. And
that had been proposed a couple years back when the city.
That's been. I think it goes back to the old Hickory by choice, and I'm not sure when. That was 90s, I think. Well, it's just a great piece of property, and the city owns it. And although it would be challenged to build anything else, it's perfect for a park.
Okay.
But on the corner is some flat property that would be perfect for a little shopping center. You can't do, about 10 acres, so you can't do a huge shopping center. But you
you said 75 acres total?
75 total.
Okay.
And to do this park is estimated at $2 to $3 million.
Okay. Does it have lake access?
It has very limited lake access, but we could probably do some things to create a little. We could have a mini marina. I know maybe that doesn't make
landing.
Any sense. A landing.
Okay.
Maybe people could come up there and tie their boat off and and do some walking or something. But it's not going to be a launch site.
Okay,
no.
Gotcha.
Well, we advertise after much debate and discussion, and of course, the debate and discussion centered on that is a pretty piece of hickory, that's 75 acres, and it is a gateway.
Right there at Alexander County, right there at the bridge.
Yeah. It might be nice to keep it all as a park.
Right.
And on the other hand, if we can sell it for what we think it's worth, which is about $900,000, then we would have that much to offset the cost of a park.
Okay. So you're about halfway there, maybe, on the park. Halfway,
yeah.
2/3 or a third of the way on the park.
And we're also, as part of this, this is a fairly... This only works when we own the property.
Okay.
When we own the property, we can say, we're going to attach a lot of strings to whoever buys it. Okay? Normally, the only strings we can attach in a transaction between a buyer and seller is zoning. It has to meet the zoning, whatever that is.
Right.
Subject, of course, to the fact that we can change zoning in some situations, or we can allow alternative uses. But in this case, we could control everything. So we said, if we're going to put a park at that a center, we were doing this right, in my opinion.
Right.
If we're going to put a center there, we want the proper screening. We want a say in where the retention ponds are.
Right.
We want to be able to, we can even say, we don't like those square windows. We want round windows.
Gotcha.
That's the kind of control
when you own the property.
When you own the property.
And I guess the access, the egress to the park, if the parcel or the shopping center, you may want to make sure that you can get to the area for the park and out of the park.
And we want to dictate what the backside of that center can look like.
There you go. Okay.
Because it'll be viewed from the park.
Okay. The proposed park.
Huh?
The proposed park.
Well, it's going to be a park.
Okay, gotcha.
It may be some present-day third grader who's mayor at that time, but there's going to be a park.
There's going to be a park. There you go.
But
so this is what you want to do with it. Then somebody came to City Council, obviously during this hearing regarding this, and said, "Here's $900,000. I don't want the land to be sold. I want it to remain consistent as a park and as is that correct?"
That's correct.
Okay. So they said, for the interest of the city of Hickory, and we're willing to write a $900,000 check.
That's right.
And council said, no, we're not going to do that. We voted again. We're going to vote against that. And you voted,
okay.
I got a $900,000 check in my hand, or I'm going to have one maybe in the next couple of weeks.
Well, let me first point out that the people who stepped forward and offered to buy the property, are very nice folks. They are people of tremendous integrity.
Right.
They're people you would like to do business with. So there were no issues there.
Right.
It's simply, I said I'd take the 900. You get 900 now versus what we agreed to. We said we were selling this property for $900,000.
Okay.
And that's what we think is happening.
Gotcha. So you're either going to sell it to the people who have a proposed venture there, or to somebody who wants to be part of what's going to continue on as a park. They'll be the owners. They would be the owners of that property for $900,000.
Well, no, they'd be the owners till they deeded it back to the city. Or they could be the owners forever, but we would control what goes there.
Okay, gotcha.
We're going to control what goes there, period. when I say that, yeah, we're going to control what goes there. But I will tell you this: we're not going to be able to name what company's going to go there. We're not going to be able to name what the out parcels are going to be used for. You know, a center usually has an anchor tenant,
right,
and it has outlying parcels,
right. So you can as long as you own that, you can dictate anything that goes with zoning, what the windows have to look like, what the asphalt, the entrance, the exit.
Well, and technically we can even say, nah, we're not going to accept that store or those stores.
All right.
And there are going to be limits. I mean, we're not going to allow certain types of businesses out there.
Gotcha.
But let's face it, you get 2 or 3, they've got an option for a period of time, actually 3 years, before we have to have something open.
Right.
Things can happen between now and then.
Sure.
The company, you know, I'd like to be able to say we've got that money in hand, but we don't. They have an option. They have an option,
gotcha.
And they're trying to put things together.
So you had an option on one end, a check for $900,000 on the other end. Council takes a look at the option. You don't want to pick it a poke. I said pick it a poke before we came on the air, and you kind of smiled, but that you got the $900,000 versus something that may or may not come to fruition. Is that correct?
Well, now let me tell you, I always hesitate to put to try to think through why other people vote the way they do.
Sure. Okay. Okay. Right. That's unfair. Okay.
The people who voted the way they do, I am satisfied. The way they did, I'm satisfied. Feel that they voted in the best interest of the people of Hickory.
There you go.
Okay. That's not a question.
Okay.
It just became a matter of. I said, well, we got 900,000. And we can probably move that park project up several years, or we can give somebody an option that might result in us getting $50,000 a year forever. Or we might be able to go to these people who want to buy this piece of property and say, can we sell you another piece of property? I thought we had a shot at parlaying this into having our cake and eating it too.
Gotcha. Okay.
But anyway, that's why I voted yes on a purely pragmatic basis. I said, let's take the 900,000. That's why I said, let's take the 900.
We got to go to break. When we come back, I'll tell you, Susie Woods has already heard that it's going to be a Publix. She was in line at Walmart, I believe, up in Granite Falls, and there were 2 nurses in front of them in line. And they said, well, it's going to be a Publix. A Publix is coming to Hickory. I believe that's the way.
Get the names of those nurses, because I'd like to call them and find out. I'd like to know.
It's out there. So when we come back, we'll find out what you can, what you do know, what you don't know, what you can, what you can't tell us. More First Talk after the break. Good morning. Welcome back to First Talk with Hal Row on 1290 WHKY Talk Radio for the Greater Hickory Metro. We're just talking with the mayor about a proposed venture that may be happening in Cloninger Mill Road, 127, the other side of the Honey Pick. And the rumor is out there. Now, here's the thing. I don't like rumors, and I don't like having to say this. I quoted my source. Actually, I said it was Susie. Actually, it was Susie's husband, Keith.
And 2 nurses.
Who was in line.
Were these registered nurses or practical nurses or LPNs?
Don't know. But they were nurses. They may have just been assistants. They may have been dental assistants. I don't know. But obviously they were clad in that type of, we got a Publix coming to Hickory. Now, when things happen, and they're happening within the city of Hickory, there are certain things that if it's going to blow a deal or if it's going to mess up a deal, I don't want to know about it. If the city's messing with somebody, or not messing with, the city's in negotiations with somebody, if there's a real estate company that's trying to put this deal together, and all of a sudden someone says something and it blows the deal, I don't want to do that. I'd like to see commerce come to Hickory. Is there anything that you can say, or do you know that we're going to get a Publix in the area? Is there anything that you can or cannot say about that? I'll just put it.
I really, at this point, probably ought to just say I can't say.
Okay.
Although I will tell you, we do not have a deal.
Okay, there you go.
With the developer.
Okay.
And they don't have a deal with any grocery chain.
Okay.
And in fact,
things may be in the works.
In fact, I think the agreement we have with them is that they will bring an anchor retailer.
Okay.
I don't think it says we will bring an anchor grocery store.
Okay.
Although I understand, I've learned, in this job, one of the things many years ago, I said one of the reasons I wanted to be mayor, I was going to learn some stuff I didn't know. And I've learned a lot more about sewage than I ever dreamed I would know. But I will tell you something. I've learned a little bit about foot traffic and the kind of things that these shopping center people talk about. And it seems like the only kind of a retail establishment, other than a liquor store, that would bring the foot traffic they're looking for would be a grocery store.
Gotcha. So there's a possibility that might happen.
Yes, possibility, but it ain't a done deal, as they say. And it's going to be a while before we have any money out of it, if we ever get any money out of it.
Gotcha. So we got up to 3 years to find out. So by that time, we got time for all kinds of rumors to be swirling around. Mayor says it's going to be a liquor store. By the time you're out of here, that's going to be what people heard. I just got back from New Bern and was talking up there for the Main Street Awards, and I got to tell you, Mr. Mayor, I saw some wonderful. We had a winner, Jason Yates, who with the old HB group, and what he has done with the station, and redoing that, and he's an award winner. We'll have a show about that, about Jason Yates, and we're going to have him on the air with us and talk about that. But I saw so many wonderful ideas up there that were public-private ventures, that the city came together with interested individuals in making their community a better place to live and work. Now, whether that was a city mascot, I don't know if you've ever been to New Bern and their whole bear concept going on in the downtown area. It's wonderful. You need to see that. But when we have a group like Friends of Hickory come together and take a look and say, we want to create a park, or we want to do this. We want to tell me a little bit about your response and your feelings on public-private proposals that will benefit the city of Hickory, or are targeted to benefit the city of Hickory. I kind of want to hear how you feel about that.
Well, I think everyone knows that I have been, I believe, the most vocal advocate of inspiring spaces and Innovate Hickory. And the reason for that is I've seen it work other places, and I'm seeing it work here. For example, the Holler Hosiery building. I think that was about a $7.3 million investment.
Wow.
And I think it was about $3.5 million of federal tax credits for restoring a historic building. And people can say, well, that's my tax dollars. Well, they're going to be, our grandchildren are going to pay it, whether it's here or Elkhart, Indiana. Okay? I want to see us get our share of it if our grandchildren are going to have to pay for it.
Right.
And some people are going to say, well, that's a nasty thing for the mayor to say. Well, hey, I believe that. Second, private investors, $3.5 million. So there were $7 million between the tax credits and private investors, and the city has about $300,000 in sidewalks and ingress and egress improvements. Is that a deal? Now, would it have happened without our $300,000? I think it may have, but I'm going to tell you something. If we can spend a little bit and inspire others to spend a lot, we will turn this city around a lot faster than if we're sitting back and saying we're going to spend as little as we can. And I think people know that by nature and by reputation, I'm a fairly conservative kind of guy, particularly with taxpayer money. But it's time now, folks, that we start inspiring others. Excuse me. to invest and to move here and to stay here. And let's prove to everybody what we all know, what a wonderful place this is to live.
Mr. Mayor, I want to thank you very much for your time this morning. We're going to go ahead and close the way we normally do with our national anthem.